Yo, this is your boy Cervon checking in with a court in the hip hop. I'm bringing to you a very special guest. I got to know a little bit more about Chanel with working with her with basically some interviews of some of her clients and individuals she worked with. And she gave me a yes when there was a lot of people that gave me no's, and I'll forever appreciate that. And any feedback that she gave me along the way around that time as well. And I just wanted to bring her here and have this conversation and take the time to highlight her and her journey as well. So thank you for being here with me, Chanel.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. I pride myself on giving emerging talent across the board a chance. We can't do better until we start, right? And somebody has to give you a start. So I'm happy to be that for you and anyone else who comes my way.
No problem, no problem. And at that time, I was just shooting my shot everywhere, just to get it. I was doing it all by myself. You see, I'm with the court to hip hop now. I set up with a team with them, but at the time I was doing my own thing, and man, it was tough. A lot of people talk about the success of when you get up there, and I'm not even all the way up there yet, but just the grind part of it, people don't tell you about the rigors of all that. And so I want to kind of get into that with you and what you do and how it came to where you are now. So I want to start from the beginning. And already there's something that me and you have in common. When I was in college, I was a political science major, and I switched to criminal justice. And my degree is actually in criminal justice from FAMU. But I seen that your major was in political science. My sister, she's a political science major now, so that's kind of dope.
Oh, love it. Yes, I've always had an interest in civics and just, I wanted to make a difference in the world. And even though, on a smaller scale than what I envisioned doing, I thought I was going to be the real life Olivia Pope out here and instead been chasing rappers and DJs. But, I'm dabbling in the politics now, but I'm sure you'll get into that.
Yeah. The funny thing about it with me is like the more I was in going through the schooling for it, the more I just couldn't stay in politics. Which is funny because I have such a passion for having a voice of what's going on and everything. But I was like, I don't know if I would want to work in it. My heart and my love has always been in music. From even being an artist to self-taught DJ to doing what I'm doing now. It's just like I commend anybody that's in there and getting it in, especially when they're Black, because man, it's just a lot going on in that realm of things, most definitely. So with you, having the interest in that, and now you work in the world of what you're doing and everything in public relations, brandings, event planning, and and media. What led you to that space, coming from that world of wanting to be the Olivia Pope and want to be in that political space?
Me, I knew that. Well, I thought I was going to be this hard news, like I said, journalist. I went to Pace University and I was on the school paper. Shout out to my Pace Press fam. But it gave me the first opportunity to write hardcore news. And when my news editor left, unfortunately, and I realize this now, certain microaggressions happen even on that level. And for whatever reason, they didn't trust me to continue to write the hard news. As editor positions came up, I was looked over, which I can guarantee you, if I spoke with some of them, they wouldn't even realize that happened to me. I guess sometimes it's that, again, they're microaggressions. And so I was probably the last senior classman, upperclassman, if you will, to get an editor position. And the only section of the paper that was left was the entertainment section. And I said, well, I'm going to show them this is going to be the best damn section of the paper. And with that, I met so many different people. I met Pace University is in Manhattan, and I always knew I wanted to stay in New York and hustle during the school year and not have to fight for internships and whatnot when people came in town for the summer. So me doing the entertainment section of the paper helped me meet, people that were pitching our paper. So like all the different TV stations, all the different smaller, other publicists at that time that wanted, us to write about, their movie reviews, and record labels were pitching, and it was very, at that time, it wasn't email or anything. Like, I mean, yeah, there was email, but it wasn't used in that capacity. It was a lot of like, physical mailers. It was a lot of in-person pitching and all of that. And it made me meet a bunch of great people. I got an internship at ABC at One Life to Live because of my relationship with ABC at that time. I got to know the folks at Def Jam, who then offered me an internship at Def Jam there. So now I'm seeing all of these things in music and TV and film, and I'm not really understanding where I want to be in entertainment. But I said, you know, I can still do the writing element of what I like, but in some capacity of like entertainment. So I just interned every and anywhere that I could until I kind of found my niche of like, okay, I think I want to be an entertainment writer, and I did that for a while. So yeah, it kind of found me.
Definitely. And I just got a question to that. You get into that space and you're doing the internships and you're being in these rooms and creating a network early. Can you really emphasize how important that is of building a network and really putting the work in instead of like the instant success that is now kind of like what people are seeing when they're looking at the socials and seeing these people in these positions, and they're only seeing the success. They don't see the work that goes in back of it. Can you kind of
That's
emphasize that? Like,
it's super annoying to me because you only see the successes, you only see the wins, you don't know what it took to get here. And like you said, it's all about your network and your relationships. um, I always say you can steal my contacts, but you can't steal my relationships, and I absolutely mean that. Do sometimes I might pitch something or someone at a different company or media outlet platform or whatever, and they want to help me, not necessarily just because of what it is that I'm pitching. So I always say I am the connector. After that, the work has to deliver, because I will never jeopardize my relationship for a client that might be gone tomorrow. I pride myself on uh, on not leaning on my network to do me a solid. The solid is you paying attention to me. But with that said, having great relationships and helping others, not just asking, which PR tends to do. If I can help someone do something that they want to do or need a plug here or there, then they can't wait to help me in some capacity. But I pride myself on making sure that it's a good fit and not just a solid because of our relationship.
definitely. And like I've learned more than anybody, like sometimes relationships are worth more than money. And that's like a term that I've been carrying around with me, even when I'll get frustrated from the no's or whatever. But I think it's very important that people understand the hard work that goes behind it. And even when you get no's, you got to keep going because somebody's going to give you a yes. Um, as you working in such a male dominated industry, and especially with individuals you work with, uh, what can you say is like the hardships or the things that you face as a woman in this industry?
Um, you get little sis to death, right? And now more than ever, I have to remind folk in my team, clients, other colleagues, that I can stand on my own one too. And a lot of the times, people continue to work, to treat you, yes, like the term little sis, like, oh, that's little sis and the homie and yada yada yada. But my resume speaks for itself. And it took me a long time to have that backbone, because as you mentioned, it's a male dominated industry. And a lot of times, we as women, the more backbone you have, the more it's like, oh, she's either conceited or she's a bitch. There's no in between. And as a woman, you have to learn how to be comfortable in your own skin, love yourself first, but be firm and dominate, right? And just trust your instincts and your gut and do it with self-pride. And other than that, just stay focused, because they will try to discard your work because you're a woman, and that's
Yeah.
just a fact.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've had these conversations with the team about the hardships of women in the industry, misogyny, sexism, and whatnot, and it spurred into a big conversation. And and it made me be like, well, we're having this conversation as men amongst each other. Why don't we bring women into this conversation and so they can give their firsthand testimony and there, because I feel like it's inappropriate or kind of irresponsible to have that conversation without having women involved. And that kind of inspired me to interview you, because I pay attention, and I see the work that you put in. And as soon as the convo popped up, when I had the idea we have to have that conversation with women, you were one of the first people on the list that I thought about wanting to speak to.
Thank you. It's really
With you,
touching.
no problem. um and so I know you say you establish these relationships, you're moving and you're grooving, but there's people that are near and dear with you that also are individuals you work with, like Chinks. And we don't have to get too far in depth with it, but can you explain the importance of what Chinks meant to you and how that relationship developed?
Well, I got goosebumps as you said the name. Chinks was one of the first. I was an upcoming emerging publicist as he was an emerging rapper at the time, and so we both had, can't say a point to prove because we didn't really feel that then, but in all reality, that's what it was. He was working under French. Everyone knew him as a writer, as the behind the scenes guy and whatnot, and it wasn't his turn yet, but now it's his turn. And I want to say similar to me of like, yeah, I'm working with some people, but again, it's like the little cis mentality. You're here helping out, one step above an intern type thing, um, and not really, getting that opportunity. Um, and Chinks was the first project that I want to say I was allowed to be as creative as I can be without the red tape. A lot of the times you might have great ideas and a great strategy, but 9 times out of 10, someone is shooting you down or some capacity of the strategy that you're trying to build. And Chinks would always say, it's me and you. It's me and you. Like, just know that whatever you want to rock with, I'm going to listen to you and whatnot. And this was before, there was any label support, even Biggs, who's now family, who's Chinks manager. This was even before him. And we really just got to, to connect and say, all right, it's us, meaning our creativity and how we're going to do this. And some clients turned into friendships and some turned into family. And I'm blessed to say that Shanks was family before he passed. He was the first person to know that I was pregnant, like besides like my immediate family. I saw him at an event and he knew right away. He's like, "Oh my gosh!" And he was more excited, than I expected him to be. And he was like, "I'm gonna be the baby's godfather, right?" And I'm like, "Okay." And sure enough, I can't say that he kept his word, but in a way he did because he passed before my son was born. Shanks passed in May, and my son was born in August. But I tell you this, from the funeral where I met his family, um, our families have remained close since then. Um, our sisters, our Shanks's sister-in-law and my sister have developed their own friendship. Our kids have developed their own friendship, and definitely Janelle and I are extended besties, if you will. She actually talked to my hubby this week and was and they're planning game night and all that. So I say that with a smile. I may have lost my friend, but I gained a family for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. Rest in peace, Chinks. Rest in
Yeah.
peace. I just wanted to get to that because I know that's near and dear to you. And
Oh, absolutely. Thank
yeah,
you for that.
Yeah, no problem. So, I just that's one things I did want to call out. I know you've worked with a lot of people, even some corporations, WWE, Hot 97, Jimmy Jazz. One thing that point out to me, and that's why I say this was when I was getting a lot of no's, this was somebody who gave me a yes. And this was a interview. I've interviewed a lot of people, mostly R&B, but this is the first real big hip hop artist that I was a fan of, and also had the opportunity to interview through Chanel, and that's Jim Jones. And I know you do work with Jim Jones and Dipset or whatever. Can you explain the relationship with that and how that even came about?
Well, again, everything is relationship based. Drewski, DJ Drewski and I came up together. We were interning together. Again, maybe one step up above an intern. Maybe we were assistant. I don't even remember. But Drewski was assisting Cypher Sounds at the time, and this was right before Cypher Sounds and Peter Rosenberg were going to have their own show on Hot 97. It was going to, it became the Cypher Sounds and Rosenberg show in the morning, and all my young DJs, Drewski, DJ Juanito, DJ E Styles, and I want to say it definitely one of the producers. Again, all of our young, we were hustling together. Dominican Drew, they were all so supportive of me early on in my career, and they convinced Cypher Sounds and Rosenberg to let me be their publicist. And simultaneously, Drewski was in the studio with Jim and trying to get him to make music again. And so he let him make a mixtape. They made this mixtape together, and he's like, "Oh, we should do an event." So he's like, "Oh, can we have my publicist do it?" Again, my DJ's always looking out for me. So he was like, "Yeah, okay." So Drewski, puts me in contact with Jim. Jim goes, "Okay, we trying to do this event." I'm like, "Oh, when do you want to do an event?" He's like, "In 2 days." I'm like, 2 days? He's like, "Yes, 2 days." So he puts me in contact with one of his partners. Shout out to Reggie. Reggie and I go scout the venue. I put the event together. The event is a huge success, and by the end of the night, Jim comes to me. "Well, I guess you passed the test, baby girl." and and that's how my relationship with Jim started. And as we approached one of the many um, Dipset reunions, is when I met the team, and it's always like a family, meaning, you meet your distant cousins, you get close to another cousin. Oh, and so over time I built my relationship with each of them, and no matter what, it's still like family. Chase,
Definitely.
on the phone, baby. I know.
I dig it. I dig it.
um,
Hey, you good with me. You good. I often say that PR are like the unsung heroes in the industry. And the reason why I say it is because sometimes I believe like PR, they're the PR agents or PR the publicists or whatnot, they're not the individuals that really are put into the forefront and the limelight. They're not the ones that are always, um the trophy. You know what I'm saying? We see usually the talent that receives all the accolades and things of that nature. You guys are the unsung heroes that work behind a lot of stuff that can get crazy. So just in a world of being a publicist and looking at, what's going on today, what keeps you want to go? What keeps you going in that realm with knowing how crazy you can get with some of this new talent, and then the internet world is having such an impact on things. How can you keep up with in that world, in that space?
because sometimes you find little things that keep you energized and remember why you do this, and um how many careers you get to help accelerate. Like, I get credited for helping Cardi B, get her first placement in music. And I pride myself with that because, again, um, sometimes you have these relationships with folk, but again, the work has to deliver. And at that time, people aren't taking her music seriously. They looked at her as a reality star. The term influencer didn't even exist yet. So it was a lot of negotiating. Okay, you can have her for the eye candy piece, but I need this, freestyle session, and I need you to, write about her mixtape and all that. And just making that negotiation was an ultimate part of the process. And then to fast forward, if my son is 9, a whole decade later, and here am I in the same vein with Zeddy Will, who is a rising star. His hot new single today went for ads across the country. So by this time, this publishes. You guys will hear it on the radio if you haven't already.
Indeed.
And it's having the same uh I'm having, I can't say the same hurdle, but it's very reminiscent of making the argument and letting people take him seriously as a recording artist, not just a TikToker or an influencer. Like, no, so it's making the same argument that sometimes the kids already know what's hot. Sometimes it's reinforcing the industry, or making those introductions, and like, no, this person is here and they're a megastar and they got something to say, and it's doing the reverse. And a lot of people wish they would have that problem, right? You have the fan base. I mean, they want the fan base, they have the industry support, but not the fan base. In this case, it's the reverse. And it's exciting to do again, because it's like, listen, I remember I told you, and remember that you can see a star from a mile away, and being part of that process to show the industry all over again. And it's one thing to do it once, it's another thing to do it again. Well, I'm here to do it again. And remember, I told you about Zeddy Will.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that. Zeddy Will. I she said it. And like I said, I often feel like PR, you guys are the unsung heroes, but I want to take this time to kind of big you up. I know you were named All Hip Hop's Powerful Women in Urban Magazine's Executive Power in 2018. You were featured in Black Enterprise for brand alignment between Dipset, the NBA, and Bleacher Report in 2020. I want to talk about this big one. This big one that just came about. You being put on the Double XL's award board, and that's new news as of this year. Congratulations.
Thank you. You talk about relationships and networking. Vanessa and her team at Double XL. Again, I mentioned with Cardi, it was a pivotal standpoint in my career. And again, there's just so many different moments of my career with other clients, and Double XL has always been a part of that story. And for Vanessa to reach out to me and offer this to me, I was like, oh my gosh. As a writer, one, as a publicist now, to even have the relationship that I do with some of these writers who I've looked up to my entire career, even when I was on the other side of the red carpet. I have to pinch myself sometimes. Like, oh my God. Some people, they fangirl off of celebrities. I fangirl off of the writers. I've been
Yeah.
a fan of hip hop writing for a very, very long time. Had my Double XL covers, my Vibe covers, my Source covers, all of that pinned up on my room. And to be here amongst them all, I couldn't have asked for more. I'm pinching, my 15-year-old self is pinching herself.
Dope, because like I grew up like a magazine guy. There was a time I was a very avid reader when I was younger. And then I got to like middle school and high school, I was like, I can't find stuff that I relate to and things. And that next thing you know is Vibe magazine, Source. It was towards the latter end of Source when I was into it. But I remember, my uncle and people having the older magazines. I look into those, but I was a Double XL guy, big time. I used to have the cut out Double XL eye candies on the wall in my room. I don't want to talk about that, but but I was a Double XL guy.
I understand, like every summer jam, and I pride
Mhm.
myself in doing that, going to most of them. And at that time, XXL used to do the booklets, the programs, if you will, for each year. And I had that collection. So XXL has been a vivid part of my journey for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I know me and the fellas, we were just talking about like the freshman cover and the evolution of that, and we were talking about our best years. We're gonna have an episode coming on that. But that was one of the things we want to, bring it to the forefront. So with you working in this industry, and I know we talked about a major thing on the hip hop side of it. We also know that you partner with WWE and NBA and things of that nature. What is that world like separate from the music? How is it? In that wrestling world, I see it's like a new reign over there in WWE, and there's a lot of things happening. How is that world different in contrast to the music side of things?
I believe it's not different. Shout out to Peter Rosenberg again. My tribe always looks out for me. It was Rosenberg that recommended me to help them with culture. They wanted, they wanted to get recognized by some of our most important culture spaces. And at the time, even though they had a bunch of I want to say Black wrestlers and POCs, if you will, they still weren't getting the recognition. And I don't know if it's that hip hop were closeted wrestling fans. Rosenberg is definitely, and I'm saying that with pride, but he was one of the first in hip hop, him and Wale, to publicly, say that they're wrestling fans. And I watched little by little, this person's a wrestling fan now, and that person's a wrestling fan. I was like, oh, where's all this? But anyways, the point is that as much as you would think that it is different, it's very much the same. I mean, once we get into certain spaces, we dominate, and that's why they always want to gatekeep, right? So, it's just about giving us a chance and showing, that we can hold our own talent, if you will. But as far as the work is concerned, it's all the same. It's still culture stories. It's just understanding who the players are. And I think a lot of the times that's what the corporations are missing. Some of these larger agencies or corporations that have their in-house communication teams, they know the standards. I was actually on a panel last week talking about this. Like, we're so focused on KPIs and all these measuring standpoints, but if you're Wale Mania, does KPIs matter to you? No. Because what good is it if you're on the Today Show but you're focused on Black talent and you're not on Baller Alert or the Shade Room? Like, it doesn't benefit you, right? So there's different ways to measure. And again, the corporations, they just need to have an understanding of where best to talk to us, and I'm here to help them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a wrestling fan. I just actually got back into it on the last WrestleMania, just because I started seeing my favorite wrestlers come back. I seen The Rock. I seen, Undertaker make his thing. Now, I was a big like WWE guy growing up, but you get older, some of those things started to become, and then it stopped becoming cool, and then it got cool again, and I'm on board again. So yeah, especially with the representation of Black wrestlers, especially on the women's side of wrestling, there's a lot of women making headway in that space. Bianca Belair, Lash Legend, Naomi. There's just so many in that arena that is just like, okay, we got the representation. That's what I like. And it seemed like the last WrestleMania was like, it was a lot of hip hop in that space too. So yeah, it was dope to see the culture in the building for that, and constantly being brought in. They'll have the newer streamers there, I Show Speed, Kai Cenat, things like that. And I'm like, all right, so it's clicking.
Right. Slowly but surely.
Yeah, it's definitely clicking. All right. So I know people may come across your socials and people may see you around certain people and they don't understand what PR is about. What is it like when people are just like, what is the craziness that you get via social media of possibly people thinking they can come to you to get signed or whatever, or get net cities? How is that? Do you deal with that craziness?
I do. I've actually had a social stalker or two, so there's that. Yeah, I have to be very careful, even though I don't consider myself an influencer. I do have my own audience, if you will, and I have to realize that I have to be careful of not to show too much of my personal life, meaning so my friends, they're very conscious now. Chanel, please don't post that. You have X amount of followers. Like, I'm like, oh, I forget. Or like, posting my son in his school uniform and be
Mhm.
conscious of that. So it does get weird sometimes as far as like the work. Yes. Do you have people all the time that want to come to you and, want you to listen to their music and all that? But that's also part of the job. I don't ever want someone to feel like I'm too big where I'm unapproachable. I don't care if you're looking for career advice, or consultation. I am approachable, and I pride myself in being responsive to people.
And you're honest too, because you know when to
Sometimes
tell
too
the truth.
honest.
Like you're honest about it. Yeah, you're definitely honest. I want to get into your baby, Legion Media Group. Can we talk about that and the formation of that? Could we go into that?
Yeah. So Ian and I have been partners for a very long time since Pace University. We started a magazine in school called Trendsetter, which we actually went into litigation with them because we started the magazine. Then it was a magazine for us college students, written by us college students, but not just focused on Pace. Because we went to school downtown in Manhattan. If you know the area, it's not really a traditional campus. It's the lower Manhattan. So we would ex- expand the the magazine and the writers and even our distribution through other schools, New School at the time, NYU, even up to Columbia, definitely the CUNY schools, and just have that participation. The magazine did so well when we graduated and tried to take it. The Pace was like but I say that to say that while we were there, we would do these fashion shows to promote each issue. One of them in particular that I remember was like we got Keisha Cole on the cover, and we would do put together a fashion show where the person on the cover would come to our school, perform or an appearance, and and that's how we would promote the magazine issue and invite the other schools and whatnot. And fast forward, after we graduated, the NAACP asked us to do the same thing, like create the same kind of show, but big enough for their centennial. And we're like, fresh out of college, and we're like, listen, this is a summer check, let's do it. So we did. And again, it was part of their centennial. It was a big to do. I don't know if you recall, but in the summer of '08, there was a gentleman by the name of Barack Obama who was campaigning. And he even stopped by, not our event, but the centennial itself. And our event at the centennial got more attention than our president. And it got so much attention, whether it's yeah, local papers to even like 17 magazine, USA Today, all of that, so much attention in the media that the participants, the designers down to the DJ asked us to do PR for them. And we are like, do PR? Like, this was a one-off, gig for us. But again, I remind you, it was 2008. And if you guys know anything about that, by the time October hit, the stock market crashed. I had got laid off from Ad Age. Um, I was I was freelancing for In Touch Weekly at the time, and I was getting less and less gigs there. And I said, Ian, maybe we need to take this PR thing seriously. And sure, and lo and behold, one client led to another client, led to another client, led to another. And here we are from 2008 to now 2025, one client at a time.
And still killing it. And still killing it. Big shout out to you. Big shout out to you and what you and Ian is building and have built with the Legion
Thank
Media
you.
Group. Big shout out. I want to take it back a little bit. I know you mentioned that you were writing in entertainment and we had a conversation. Me and the team, we had a conversation about the transition of, um, the print magazines to going digital with the space that we're in now and stuff being on the internet. Do you think there still should be a major significance into entertainment writing, even if it's digital now? How do you feel about that?
It's tough because as a writer, I understand the love of words, but I also know that in today's time to capture attention, because you only have 15 seconds to get someone's attention, right?
Mm,
And with all the massive shifts of not necessarily um, media itself, but how the audience consumes, you have to be able to keep up with the times. We watch, and I always say on the PR side, I watch how the media changes every 3 to 4 years. In the music space, there wasn't DSPs when we first started this, right? There was blogs. The kids don't read the blogs now, like no. And guess what? I don't know who wants to tell the old people, but they're not even on Instagram. So I say that to say you have to be mindful of how the consumer is consuming information. And as much as it hurts to see a lot of my friends get let go, and even not just let go, but um, some of my favorite platforms close or be eliminated. I, you'll have to plan for the future. So you can't really be mad at the powers that be that are doing this. I just hope that those platforms also transition and bring my peers and friends along with that transition. There was a report saying that Washington Post is going to do more influencer coverage. And what that means is, and hopefully that includes some of their journalistic talent. Maybe it's not traditional writing, but it's writing for those bits. It's, I'm intrigued to see what each platform is going to do because I understand it. And if we are going to make any change, we have to keep up with media and again, how consumers consume their information.
yeah, definitely. I agree. It's tricky when we look at it now. I know there was the blog era, and then we're going into the internet stuff, and this internet stuff looks like it's here to stay. You may have different variations of how they go about things. I look at media takeout, but then I look at Shade Room taking it further, and I'm looking at all the rest of these emerging ones, even in podcasting. How we consume interviews now is totally different. Do you think even with in the podcast space and even what I'm doing, do you think it should still be an importance of still having a journalistic integrity in the interview space? I was telling people there's a difference between potting and there's a difference between interviewing. Do you think there still should be a significance with the art of how you conduct interviews as a journalist?
Absolutely. And then it will also be harder to, I guess, it would be harder to say if without journalist integrity, it would be harder to say differentiate or give an acknowledgement to someone who is authentically like we use say on social media, it was like who had a blue check, right? See how like the blue check can be bought. Well, how do we differentiate between what is real information or accredited and so on if these platforms that are accredited or journalists that are accredited, if there's no standard, then what? And so I'm eager to see again what the accredited platforms and journalists that are doing this for real, how do we keep them above the fray? Because we do need someone to be verified. You can't just continue to have random information, and and people can change history, or you know.
Yeah. Because it's crazy how we consume news now. Sometimes people are not going directly to the credible news sources. They're getting their news from these internet platforms and whatnot that really doesn't really have the credible sources to report things. Sometimes some of them get a lot of breakthrough stuff that doesn't make it to those major platforms, and you see those major platforms kind of sourcing them for it sometimes. So that's still kind of crazy to me. It just, the media world is really interesting where we have went now. But I want to take it back again. You was a political science major at Pace, and I see what you're doing on the political, going back to that again. Can we speak about that? Because I don't want to spill the beans about too. I know people seen it already, but I want you to speak on it more. I don't want to.
Yes, I'm excited that I'm now part of Ross Baraka's PR team that is helping him, on his campaign for New Jersey governor. I'm excited. I'm a resident of New Jersey. I've seen the strides that he's made in Newark, and I'm excited for him not only to be a force here in New Jersey, but also to fight back against the current administration. He's one of the Democrats that aren't afraid to say what should be said, and just that fact alone shows me that he's not just going wherever the Democrats say to blow. Like, he's in your face, on the streets, door to door type of campaigner. And I'm just here to spread the word. So I'm excited. Again, it's one of those things where you can see the fruits of your labor and understanding that it can change the course of history. And, even how my child here, who goes to public schools here in New Jersey, it will affect him and how he grows up. So, at least for the next 4 years. So I'm excited to be part of that process. And yes, I get to dabble in my degree again.
Yeah, dope. And if anybody didn't get a chance to check out the interviews, he did an interview with the Breakfast Club recently, so you guys check that out as well.
And Ebro in the morning.
Ebro just did a big one. He did the interview with Kendrick during the Super Bowl. That was dope.
Yes.
Yeah, that it's kind of funny, because when you're a little bit younger and you're looking at the media from the way that you see it as how people pick sides and have their favorites. Hot 97 was once a staple. Then you see, the Breakfast Club and the Power Squad, and it made me, even when I was younger, I started looking at Hot 97 like, man, this stuff's kind of whack. And then I was like, you could like one and like the other still. And to me, I guess when you're younger, you gravitate towards the shock factor of things, or the things that are not really of that. But what I've been seeing as far as Rosenberg's takes, because I wasn't the biggest Rosenberg fan early on, but his takes has been spot on lately, man. So shout out to Rosenberg. Like, he's been saying,
I love that. People either love or hate Rosenberg. I'm on the love side, not just as his publicist, but as his friend. And I do appreciate that. It's not many people that have changed their mind. So just the fact that you're open says a lot about your character, for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep it all the way 100, man. I was not feeling, them over there, especially like there was an interview in particular. It was like a Kodak interview, and I was like, when Kodak walked out, and I was like, oh man, this is. But as of lately, with people and what they're doing, seeing what Ebro's doing with Nadeska, and if I'm saying her name right, sorry if I butchered it. But,
and Low Key, yes, shout out to Low.
And seeing what Rosenberg's with his takes and everything, it's brought me around again. I've been peeping their stuff, so I could be open and sharing that, because before I'm doing this in media or anything, I'm still a consumer and I still have opinions. And I just want people to know you could like one and like the other still, just,
I grew up loving Foxy and Lil Kim. Okay. Like,
word.
I didn't understand the choosing thing. Like, no.
Word. So, I spoke about podcasting and everything. I see that you got something that you got in that space as well. Can you speak about that?
Yes. I wish that I could say that we are still like currently taping. I'm trying to get that up and running. My best friend and I started a AMommyCast when we were when we had just become moms, and it sparked because we realized how much we didn't know or didn't have access to certain things. We grew up in middle in like middle income type families, and we come from educated second generation education families. Our parents are college graduates, so are we, our siblings are, and that means we have a certain um how can I say, privilege. And I say that to say that if we felt like we were unprepared, or or lacked certain information or resources, what about our counterparts that didn't? So our podcast is about our personal journeys as moms, certain topics that society tells us that we couldn't speak about. Like me, I had trouble conceiving. And turns out that in our group of, say, four girlfriends, two of us had problems, conceiving. And it only because I'm an oversharer did I find that out. And I was like, wait, well, why are we silent about that you had a miscarriage? Why am I suffering in silence? Um, when two of our other girlfriends have gone through something similar. But again, just because Chanel's the oversharer, that's how I find out. And then after having the baby, having my heart set on breastfeeding, and them, having so much, and I say propaganda because it's always rooted in something. It's not because they want your baby to be healthy. Why there was this big campaign for women to breastfeed. It's all about the dollars. They was trying to save some money and not giving all you people WIC and all of that. But still, I had my mindset on breastfeeding, and come to find out, I couldn't breastfeed. My body doesn't develop more. And then even down to finding out through my mom and sister weeks later, after I'm like damn postpartum because of it. And then my mom and sister says they couldn't breastfeed either. And I'm like, just what? Like, you couldn't tell me that? You see me, going through this emotionally. But again, it's certain things that just weren't spoken about. And a mommy cast is here to say, look, we are oversharers. Here's what really happened today. Here's what I'm going through. I speak about, my divorce. I speak about becoming, a semi step parent. Well, not semi. We're just not married yet, but coming into that stepmom role. All of these things that are not really spoken about usually, and just we're not experts. This is like two best friends like catching up for the week. Girl, you don't believe what your godson did this week, and all of that, and just our personal banter. People reach out all the time and say, oh my god, you guys are so funny. Like, I'm like, no, we're just here. You guys are just fly on the wall. Sometimes we forget that we're even recording.
Yo, that's dope concept though. I think that's needed. It's definitely needed.
And I think it's because in our culture, for whatever reason, it's like it's only celebrities that get to be like put on this, like, I can't say on this pedestal, because it's not that. It's just like they're the only ones that are recognized as like, but yet in our white counterparts, there's tons of mommy blogs, there's tons of mommy podcasts, and so on. And even though social media, the TikTok, the reels, they touch on all of these things, it's still not like as everyone touched on parenting, but it's still not in the same way. And we're just here to, I can't say keep it real, but be honest about our journey. And sometimes we do bring in experts. I know you spoke about Ebro. Ebro was one of our first experts that we brought in to talk about discipline, because he is definitely the disciplinarian. I remember going back to work, and we're like in summer jam planning meetings, and I'm over here like, you know, having mommy guilt on my veins. He's like, you better stop that shit, Chanel. Like, you like, yeah, you need to work so your son can eat. So, you know, and having people have those real conversations with you. And again, so we do bring in experts and the celebrity touch to it, but we're not celebrities. We're just moms, just like everyone else. And that's what how we pride ourselves in our podcast.
Yeah, that's definitely dope. So, when you get that going, more or whatever, let me know so I could check it out and share it, with people I know too. 'Cause I know people like specifically that looks for that type of stuff, especially coming from Black content creators,
Nice.
to get that, perspective and everything. So I'll stay up with you on that. Um, Earlier you mentioned you work with Cardi B early on in music. We've seen what she transcended to. What is your thought about women in hip hop at this time, and where do you see it at right now? And where can you see it possibly going?
I'm super proud that there's so many women now, because there was a time when it was only Nicki, and then, you know, and as Cardi was rising and all that, and it made it seem like we could only have one. And I remember in my day, again, I said before that I was, you know, I was a fan of them all, from Foxy to Kim to Eve to Left Eye to, you know, on and on. And I'm saying my generation, right? Like, of course, there was the Queen Latifahs and the MC Lights and all that, but I meant as I was becoming of age, those were the ones who, again, I was fans of them all at the same time, down to Angie Martinez. I loved her album. She hates when you mention it now, but I loved her as a rapper. But I say that to say there's room for everyone. And I wish and I hope, not just in hip hop as the on the artist side, but just overall, people can understand that, you know, I don't need to shit on someone else to fix my crown. Um, there's room for everyone, and I'm proud to see that there's more choices for consumers in hip hop these days. And where do I think is going? I think it will continue to expand. I think that these kids are more open, and you know, they they're more open more than we are. They don't really get constrained into like, oh, you know, my friend is listening to this, so I can't listen to that or whatever. They are more independent than we ever were, and I'm super happy and excited to watch them all dance again, watch them, because even that stopped for a while.
Yeah.
Um, and just to see the young women content creators, the more comedians and all of it. I think so. To answer your question, no, it'll just be more and more women.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a Cardi fan. I'm publicly a Cardi fan. I'm publicly a Doechii fan, and I've even said there's some that I got love for Glorilla. I've said that all publicly on this platform, and I get ripped for my support of some female artists, and you
Really?
know, yeah, is sometimes it's called out about the over sexualism in hip hop, and I had to say, man, when we think about hip hop, uh we have to be honest. There's misogynistic and sexist behavior in that, which makes it hard for these women artists. And we got into a big debate. The episode's still up, and I'm sorry. I just, even as a man, I have to be honest with that and admit it, because even in my personal life, um, the way that we've probably objectified women is something that I feel as a man we have to be honest about, because I done slid some DMs just because a chick had a banging body before, and I even worried about, what I'm saying, like that's we don't even know how we objectify. And I say, in the early beginning of hip hop, women were objectified, from the women in videos, from the lyrics and the whatnot. And we had people like Queen Latifah and MC Light, and I always say, I had Moni Love album when I was a kid. I had it on CD, Moni Love. And I remember this is just a funny story. My cousin had a cousin, she wasn't related to me, and her name was Simone. And we called her Moni, and I had a little crush on her when I was a kid. And they used to be like, my uncle used to come around and be like, Moni in the middle, where's she at in the middle? I used to run off like but I had a love for anybody who's just dope. I always say one of the biggest people who I want to just do a piece on or whatever is like Missy Elliott, and I think she was instrumental at a time in hip hop where um, she wasn't selling sets. You know, it wasn't like you looked at her like you looked at Foxy and Missy. I mean, Foxy and Kim, but she was dope and she was innovative. She was a songwriter and she was a singer and she produced. And I was like, she had more of a bag than what you ever known if you just take yourself out of, you know, just usually associating sets with female rappers. She was dope. And so I just don't like those combated arguments from my male peers when it comes to sexualism and hip hop, because I'm like, hey man, it's kind of contradictory that we're calling out these women for doing this. Now I agree, there's a over sexualized way of female rappers, but to criticize the ones that's already out, they're kind of doing their own thing. I'm talking about the up and comers that see what they're doing and trying to duplicate or replicate that. And it's just sometimes I hear some ridiculous stuff and I'm like, man, if you're just dope, you dope. Now, if you have your own style of how you want to do things, whatever, I don't care. I love Doechie's performance, going up there, being a great performance at the great performer at the Grammys, rapping with no background vocals. And it was crazy that I seen some of my male peers talking about, see, that's what I'm talking about, sexualism. She didn't have to go up there and wear what she wear up there. And I was just like, what does it have to do with the song just being dope? And you're like, you're focusing on the wrong thing. She want to wear that. She want to wear that. And she looked good doing it. That was the thing that what I loved about Foxy and Kim. They were dope, but they looked good doing it.
Absolutely.
And I also want to say, like, they don't understand a lot of this, the labels and the people that run this stuff is male dominated. And I told them they don't understand where the phrase came from when they say the women have to be who the guys want to sleep with and who the women want to be like. And that was kind of like the staple of how they put them out. And I'm like, I think there's a new wave of these female rappers that's kind of taking their narratives in their own hands and doing as they will because of the restraints that was put on them early with that mindset of that. With you working with Cardi early on, what was, I know you said a lot of people didn't believe in it, her coming from, you know, social media and coming from, you know, the love and hip hop space and everything. What was one of your biggest challenges with her because of that?
Well, just as I mentioned, people wanted to see her as eye candy, and she was just so much more than that.
There it is. And that's, fellas, that shows you everything of what I was saying. But hey, I'm not gonna hold you up too much more. I only got one more question for you, Chanel. As PR, and I would even say, you know, me being an artist space or me being a DJ, there's like dream people I want to work with. I even have dream people I would want to interview. You name one of them, which is one of my biggest influences in radio and media, is Angie Martinez. I'm not even gonna say Mel. Angie Martinez, the way that she does her interviews, and she's interviewed legends and didn't even have to be messy, and she always got the news. It was like a conversation. With you being in PR, can you say who is a dream person you always want to work with and help? Or like, do you have a dream list or any dream individuals you wish that you could just work with if you haven't already?
Not on the client side. I'm super proud, and maybe it's because I'm always home team. So there's nobody that I'm like, oh my God, I want this person as a client. No, I am excited to let my clients that I have now win. But on the behind the scenes portion, there are tons of people that I dreamed about working side by side with and having them mentor me in certain ways. Um, you know, there's been so many mentors in my head that I've gotten a chance to meet and work with now, and even one in particular, back to the Zeddy team, Sean Prez, who was an executive at Bad Boy for a very long time, but he was always an executive that I looked up to, and I got a chance to work with him early in my career. God rest the dead, Fred the Godson, but he he was managing Fred the Godson at the time, and Jers, shout out to Jers too. Jers hired me to work the Fred the Godson um, account, and I got fired within 2 weeks. And because and we've had this story. He's probably shaking his head as he's gonna hear this or see this. But we've had this conversation publicly, so it's no big deal. So, um, and we laugh about it all the time because during Fred's time, the bloggers were just becoming a thing, and and social media was just becoming a thing, and I wanted a certain look um, for our event for him, and certain people to invite, and certain way to do things, and Prez was very traditional. He's been doing this, for the same way for a long time. What works works. And not only that, he would tell you that I was very strong headed and didn't follow protocol and all those things. So I got fired within 2 weeks, and he told me, he was like as he let me go, he goes, I'm sure in 10 years you won't even be doing this. So, and I say that to say, as we are now three peas in a pod, the band is back together. Prez, Jers, and I, as we work with Zeddy Will, it is a full circle moment, and I didn't leave that situation bitter. I was grateful for still the opportunity, but it gave me the motivation to be like, one day I'm gonna show Prez. One day I'm gonna show Prez. Like, I'm still here, but my ideas ain't that crazy, and so now we're here doing it again, and uh, I know Fred. Kind of had his hand in making sure we're all back together and doing it right for Zeddy. But it's those type of things that I would encourage young professionals, that you may get fired from a gig today, but it's just about timing. And that doesn't mean you approach it with cockiness, or you're like, F that person. There's still a respect factor that I have for everyone who paved the way before me. There's so many publicists that still give me opportunities and support. And again, people that I've looked up to my entire career. And remember, they had to work hard to get here. You couldn't, in our day and in present day, you didn't even get to speak to an executive, until a year after your internship. And those are the days, this is where we came from. I had to go get lunch for Wendy for months before I got to even go in the board, in the boardroom with her or any of the execs. The problem or the point is, excuse me, is to show respect, because you may think that you know it all right now, but smart people know that you know nothing, and you continue to learn every day. So my advice is to continue to learn every day and show respect to the ones who paved the way for you to be here.
Dope. Yeah, and I agree. I'm just not gonna let you fast forward to just saying that name like that was just regular. You said for Wendy. Just
Yep.
quickly, can you speak about what your experience was with Wendy Williams working
Oh,
with her?
Wendy Williams. Those of you who were fans of Wendy early on, before she was on TV, when she was on WBLS, she would always talk about the pink room. The pink room is, her office, and where, again, our network built. Most of the people in the pink room that I've worked side by side with, we are still friends with today. One of them being Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne was Wendy's mentee at the time, and he was right in the mix with us. And shout out to Whitley, who's now doing so much on the sports apparel and production side. And he and I just did a campaign with Eastside Golf and Treasure Wilson. I want to say last month we just did a campaign together. So we're still working. I took again Ross up to the Breakfast Club, and again, that's people who we all interned with in '06 in the pink room. But so my experience there was, even get too much FaceTime with Wendy, I made the most of my opportunity. Well, who can I get FaceTime with? We were all interns at the time, but look, we're still working together in some way, bringing money to each other, giving opportunity. The Breakfast Club has never told me no for anything that I wanted to put in front of them. And look, that's what WWE hired me for, to get to the Breakfast Club. And look, it all stemmed from an internship that I made sure I still had good relationships with people who were across from me, not just lateral.
Definitely. And shout out to Treasure. She's from my city. We're from Jacksonville, Duval all day. So shout out to Treasure and what she's doing with Cam and Mace. She's dope. I like her over there. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy woman. I don't even know how you found the time today. Let me hold you up right now. But
listen, I'm just glad that my son took his butt upstairs to his room so we can talk in peace.
But that's the realism that goes into this. You're a mom, you have multiple things you juggle. You had time to sit down and talk to me. I mean, this is the fact that you have the time to do it all amazes me, how you find enough time in a day to accomplish as much as you do.
No, thank you. And thanks for thinking of me. I'm always very humble when people ask me, just like, y'all want to talk to me for what?
Like I said, I feel like you guys are the unsung heroes. I'm in PR groups and I see the talk and I see the chatter and I'm just like, I see the work that goes in certain people. And like I said, we always see the finished product, but we don't see the behind the scenes of what happens. There's never, if I can get a camera crew and do a documentary on the unsung heroes, I would love to do that.
I think it's a fine line because I do come from the Sean Prez era of understanding that we're behind the scenes. And these days, to get new work, you do have to dabble in front of the scenes. But I'm never that. It's not even about being comfortable. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to be a celebrity. Don't call me a celebrity publicist. I work for celebrities. I'm just Chase's mom over here, and that's what I pride myself more on. So
definitely the culture princess, man. Chanel, thank you for your time. Is there anything else you want to leave with the people before we get up out of here?
No, that's it. And just remember to be true to yourself, your authentic self. Don't try to be anything that you're not. Stay the course.
Definitely. I appreciate you. I'll be keeping up with you. And thank you. I can't say that enough. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
No problem.